we only have so many resources and so much attention and so much time. And it needs to be, those things need to be deployed in the most effective way possible. Clearly, it's not effective or healthy for us to be focusing on wokeness, white rage, white domestic terror, whatever. It's all just absolute nonsense to me. And I resisted the idea for years that like radical feminism, Marxism fusion is going to be what undoes the country. And, it sounds so out there. It's like it's laughable even to just say it out loud because those philosophies are so stupid. But yet here we are. I'm reluctantly dragged kicking and screaming to the conclusion that our entire government, all of our institutions, the military, the education, media, corporations, everything that gave us meaning, safety, security, education, entertainment, all of them are completely 100% occupied, captured, taken over, distracted from their mission, and focused on this thing that's a boogeyman that doesn't really exist, that's actually designed to tear the country apart. So they're all doing their part in destroying America. I don't know that you have a plan to attack this, buddy, but like, what do you think that we should do about this?
Win the midterms, start holding the media accountable for their outrageous conduct. I think the best thing to do would be if we could start prosecuting people for these leaks of classified information, and maybe Durham's going to come through on some of this stuff.
Do you really have hope for that?
I believe you're going to see some good stuff very soon.
Really?
On that front, yeah.
Wow.
And that's how you start. You got to hold. Here's the thing: the reason I left DOJ was it was one of the greatest jobs I ever had, prosecuting terrorists around the world. Like, awesome. But that mission is great. But I said, hey, what about when DOJ, and before that I was a public defender, and I would catch cops and FBI agents, some of them, and prosecutors lying to a court on a case, withholding exculpatory information or something like that. I'm like, who's holding those guys accountable? Where's the internal accountability for when the few in DOJ and FBI and elsewhere? That's what America craves more than anything else. How do we hold them accountable? And that's what's ticking off, I believe, most of America, because the government has failed in that regard. And I hope Durham can give them a piece of that back. But I think there's a bigger fight. You ask how we do that. That's how we do it, or that's what we should do. How we do it is you have to have the gavels in Congress. You have to have the White House. It's a process that takes time, and you got to educate America on all of it, like you're doing. And I'll be here to bore your audiences to sleep from now until the end of time. But,
dude, you're one of the favorites that we have on the show. You've got all of the receipts, the knowledge, the experience. You're also quite charming, down to earth, and 100% relatable. I think that's what people really like is, and I know I do, is that I really appreciate, I mean, we're practically the same age. We grew up in the same time period in this country. We have the same vernacular and like slang. And it's like, we are actually the guys now. You don't have to.
Yeah, brother, dude.
We don't have to look up and be like, oh, I wish somebody older and smarter and wiser would take care of this for us. It certainly falls into our lap right now. But as somebody yourself, very specifically, was chief of staff, DOD, huge organization, the biggest corporation or whatever, basically in the world. If all this stuff is woven into the fabrics of the institutions, that's a much bigger thing to eradicate than just changing a policy, changing a law, passing a new act, closing, whatever. I'm afraid that it's so endemic to these institutions now that they just have to be torched. I mean,
you think
reform is possible?
Yeah, with the right leadership, right? And I don't think. And I think this is one of the things the Trump administration learned the hard way, is that personnel matters, and not just at the cabinet level, but 2-3 layers below it, undersecretary level, assistant secretary level, the deputy level. It matters. And the next go around, hopefully when there's a change in administration in 24, you can reform these agencies, because as we learn, be it Russiagate, be it Afghanistan, what have you, it wasn't entire bodies of agencies and departments. It was the corrupt leadership, like a James Comey, like a Milley, that were doing these things, like an Andy McCabe, or like the Bruce Orrs of DOJ. It was people that you never thought could rise to that level of leadership, corrupting America by their crooked activities. And that ties into the accountability we need for them. But I think that the change is possible because you can choose the people you put in those positions. And the 98% below them, those guys are awesome. I worked with all of them. They're great Americans. They'll do the mission, but their leadership led them into crooked activity, and you have to hold that leadership accountable. And you can replace it when you win.
Right. To the extent that you can answer this question, I would appreciate it. It's very clear that Joe Biden and the Biden administration knows that what they're doing is unconstitutional when it comes to things like the CDC foreclosure stay, like the foreclosure ban. They literally come out and say, I don't think this is constitutional, but we're going to do it anyway. And there have been other instances in which they behave in this way that's obviously extra constitutional. Now, there have been circumstances in which Trump had policies, and the specific is not coming to mind right now, but where he enacted a policy, it went to the courts ruled against him, and he's like, all right, the courts have ruled, and I'm going to honor that. And I think Trump gets painted as somebody that was willing to just blow up all the rules and norms or whatever, but it really seemed to me that he followed the law. He followed the Constitution. He followed the judge's orders, even if he disagreed with them. Where the Biden administration is like, we're openly doing something extra constitutional. The Supreme Court's probably going to rule against us, but we're doing it anyway. Was there any time during your service where either people in the room advised the president to behave in a similar way that Joe Biden is behaving, knowingly doing things that were unconstitutional, but yet like serve the mission? I mean, this is a tough question. I'm sure you can't really answer this like direct level, but I just want to understand and point out for people that like, were there people advising Trump to be more aggressive in that way? Did Trump ever just be like, you know what? No, we really must follow all the rules. We're not going to do that. Just help us with some color, because Biden's team doesn't care, and then the people don't seem to care. And they're flaunting the Constitution. They're looking pretextually to find ways to do executive orders and mandates that supersede the legislature and open debate and vote and such. That's why all these mandates come from the CDC. That's why they come from OSHA. And that's why it's not a law, because they're not openly debated in the legislature. They're just mandates. Did Trump ever think like this? Are people around him thinking like this? Did you guys put effort into how do we game the system as best as possible? Are there blurry lines that we can step over? Is this something that we need to do to save the Constitution, even maybe by not adhering to it exactly in these circumstances? I realize tough questions, but like, what's your general take on that? And if you can give us any specifics, I'd be happy to hear.
Yeah. So look, generally, at least in the national security law enforcement arena, your elected president gets to put out his agenda. Okay. And he says, this is what I was elected to do: defend the border, reduce crime, go hard against Iran, China, Russia, things like that, collect in the forever wars. So he sets out his policy, and then everybody that works for him comes in and says, this is how we can achieve that policy. That's the essence of a democracy for an elected president. And he would have advisors around him constantly, and I was there a lot, saying opposite things, saying, no, we can do this. No, we can't do this. We need to look at the legality of it. And every conversation I had with him in the room always ended, the same way. Does it fit the policies that we're trying to achieve, and is it lawful? Can we do it? And if it was unlawful, we're not going to do it. We're not going to come up in a situation and say, well, we're going to violate the law just because it's the right thing to do. That's the politicization of the national security apparatus. Sure, should we go after, and I'll give you a perfect example. China and Russia don't have any ethics, don't care about the law, right? Don't care about people's privacy, doesn't matter. They attack us in ways that would violate our laws all day long when it comes to targeting Americans, when it comes to collecting data, when it comes to infiltrating our security apparatus. We, in return, obviously, under President Trump, had a very strong position against China and Russia. Now, could we break the law and achieve a better security posture against them to protect Americans? Sure, but we never did that under Trump. It was find the right way to do it, the lawful way to do it, even though that way was 10 times harder and took a lot longer. That's the best example I can give you of he could have just been like, forget that. Let's just go break these rules. No one's ever going to know about it. And let's go do what we need to do against Russia, China, and Iran. And he never did that. Not once.
Talking to you at once makes me feel very sane, also makes me feel very crazy, because how is it in my head, you know, and in the media and in the stories and in the minds of my family members and my old friends and whatever, people that will tell you that Trump is the one that trounced on the Constitution, Trump is the one that broke all the norms, Trump is the one that acted illegally, when these stories that you're just telling me confirm everything that I have seen, evidence of the Trump administration complying with judicial law or reviews, et cetera, court cases rather. And then Biden just is explicitly like, it's inconstitutional, y'all, but we're doing it. And yet that just doesn't like get processed. It just doesn't get internalized by people. And, I don't know how to remedy that. I guess just we have to keep talking, keep putting the message out there.
Yeah.
But I fear though that you know, people's like perception generators are just totally biased and tribal, and no matter what your guy says, it's going to be the right thing.